Call our meeting to order at 3:30 p.m. Thank you all for coming and make my other statement. Thank you to Hang and team for opening up your facility as well as the others that we've been able to meet at. Thank you for that. And thank you all for attending. I will be needing to leave at 4:30 today, and so I'll turn over the meeting to Annette. And we do the roll call.
Jennifer? Thank you. Annette? Amanda and Lieutenant Hodgkins are not able to join, and they did let us know in advance. Patrick?
Here.
Thank you. Hang? Patrice?
Here.
Thank you. Martin?
Here.
And Paula is supposed to be coming, as is Rosa, but maybe they'll join us shortly.
Nice to have a larger group so we can still keep going. So we made it. 6, yep, 6. So we need 5. So let's go ahead and approve our member absences so far. So Amanda, Lieutenant Hodgkins. But I have a motion to approve those absences. In the second, we will open up the discussion meeting.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, so first by Annette, second by Hang. Any discussion? Seeing none. Just one, if we could. They say that there's all those in favor of approval of the absences, say aye. Aye. Raise your hand, aye. We can move things faster. Are there any objections or abstentions? One abstention from Patrick. Motion carried. Okay, all right. Approval for the minutes. For some, so just to let you all know, for some of them, I'm trying not to necessarily do a roll call. In the past, you can move through it a little bit faster unless there's like some major objectives and different things. A roll call takes a little bit of time, but some of these more like minutes and so forth, that will ask for a roll call. Okay, so approval of the minutes, have folks been able to take a look at those? And if not, does anyone need any additional time? Yes, more time? Okay, all right. Hey,
Okay.
how are you?
Good for you.
We're just looking at the meeting.
Okay, so good.
Everyone had enough time to look at the minutes? Okay, all right. All right, so again, I'll take a motion to approve in a second, and I'll open it for discussions to see if there's any changes to that. Can I get a first to approve the minutes?
Speak up.
Want me to speak up? All right, sorry about that. Can I have a first to a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, so we have a motion by Jennifer. Is there a second? Okay, Hang is a second. Any discussion on the minutes, any changes? Everything look fine? Hearing and seeing none, roll call, please.
Okay. Jennifer?
Yes.
Thank you. Annette?
abstain, I was.
Abstain? Okay. And Patrick?
The same.
Okay, thank you. Hang?
Yeah.
Thank you. Patrice? Thank you. Martin?
Yeah.
Thank you. And Paula?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you. All right. Okay. Do we have any public comment? Or is anyone in here in the room? From the public, is there anyone online?
Does not look like. No.
So I'm sure you know, like, there's one name that is a top name in your country, Picasso,
That was mine.
Kinshawa.
Oh. These are people that are invited. They may not necessarily be in the meeting.
Okay, those are staff?
Yeah.
Those are all.
Okay. Okay. All right, hearing and seeing no public comment, we'll move on to item number 5, communication report from the EEOAC chair and the EEO office. So let's start with the office and if there's anything to report on, you have anything?
Just to note that Troy Gibbons, Director of Community Development, is scheduled to come August 26th. And then on September 23rd, Stephanie Jackson, our DEI officer, and Finance Director Chad Rinn is both are going to be presenting on September 23rd.
Could you repeat the first name again?
Uh,
You said
Oh,
Trey
Troy Gibbons.
Gibbons with a V or?
Gibbons. G
No, what? GIBB or GIB?
V.
Okay.
VAN.
And could you just go ahead and just repeat all that again, like what office
Sure.
and then what date, please?
So, speakers for August 26th, Troy Gibbons.
He's going to be speaking on the statistics.
Yes.
Okay.
We went over, I believe it was 2022 and 2023.
And his
Workforce
office is
statistics
what
report. Community development. And then presenting September 23rd is Stephanie Jackson, our DEI officer, as well as Finance Director Chad Rinn.
Thank you.
That's not Chad. You said green, like a
Uh,
WR.
it's RINDE.
What's the date for him?
September 23rd.
Definitely is.
Stephanie Jackson is the DEI officer.
What's
Yeah.
her county classification? I know it's like, is that the HR thing or something?
I think she is, yes.
1, 2.
3, I believe. Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you, EEO office, for setting up these meetings. That is something we have been requesting, some of them. That's great. Are there any other items that you wanted to report on? Okay, okay. Well, yes, that's terrific. I want to know, for Annette, I'm on that day, excuse me, the August 26th, I will not be present. I'll be if you're able to chair.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I will be out of town. I'm not able to do that, so my apologies for that, but yeah. Net will handle it in good hands. So thank you for that. The other part is, I want to thank the EEO office for setting up these meetings. Stephanie, that would be great, I would imagine. After we hear from Stephanie, we might have a little bit more insight or information on, when we're asking for our county executive, David being aware to come in. So I imagine that could be probably part of the strategy there too. So we'll probably have more time to formulate more questions, maybe certain things that we want to have answered, already be answered from staff. So, but we will continue to keep that on the agenda. And I'm glad that's also noted in the minutes as far as we had a very robust meeting, good discussion last month, I believe, with respect to who we wanted to hear from and some of the reasons, the rationale behind why we wanted to have them come in, and that's noted in the minutes. And so we'll have to keep that in mind. Okay, all right. So I don't have anything else to report out on other than what I just mentioned. Was making sure that we captured that in our notes. And I think that's really good. So keep your questions and your notes from what you had last time in our last meeting, so that those will be available in particular for the September 23rd meeting. All right. Okay. I don't have any other reports, so we can move on to our unfinished business item number 6, which would be the workforce statistic reports.
Okay. So in looking at the Department of Human Assistance 2022 Workforce Statistics Report, and beginning with Table 1. In looking at the workforce comparative analysis for 2017, the Department of Human Assistance total was 1,991. Minority representation was 1,255 or 63%. And female representation was 1,418 or 71.2%. In 2022, Department of Human Assistance had 1,760. Of those, 1,197 or 68% were minority, and 1,245 or 70.7% were female. Moving on to Table 2 for the job category comparison. The top 3 areas were professionals with 1,272. Of those, 918 or 72.2% were female, and 870 or 68.4% were minority. The next highest category was office clerical workers with 352 total employees. Of those, 250 or 71% were female, and 257 or 73% were minority. And last, paraprofessionals was the third highest with 71 total employees. Of those, 43 or 60.6% were female, and 46 or 64.8% were minority. And moving on to Table 3.1 for new hires and rehires. There were a total of 123 new hires. Of those, 97 or 78.9% were minority, and 85 or 69.1% were female. Total new rehires was 7. Of those, 4 or 57.1% were minority, and 6 or 85.7% were female. And moving on to Table 3.2 for terminations. There were a total of 169 terminations. Of those, 106 or 62.7% were minority, and 119 or 70.4% were female. And the highest reasons for terminated with 80 or 47.3% were employee initiated or no reason given. The next highest was retirement or disability retirement with 68 or 40.2%. And moving on to table 3.4, for promotions and demotions, there were a total of 123 promotions. Of those, 83 or 67.5% were minority, and 86 or 69.9% were female. In looking at demotions, there were a total of 18. 10 of those, or 55.6%, were minority, and 15 or 83.3% were female. And looking at table 4, for discrimination, harassment, complaint activity, there were a total of 21 complaints.
When the term rehire comes up, that means they've left the department and came back to the department?
Usually, yes.
Okay,
Within a small amount of time.
okay.
Within 3 years, yeah. Because folks have reinstatement rights.
Thank you.
Are we ready for 2023?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Any
sorry.
questions for 2022? Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Chair, I have questions on the retirement, reinstatement process. I do work for this department, and a couple of people that I do know didn't have any negative write-ups, like pending, but they weren't allowed to come back to the old. And it was very bad. They said, you're not eligible for retirement, but they didn't give the employer reason. So I would like the department to explain what that process is.
Okay. Did
Amongst others, that's the first.
did those individuals file a complaint also?
They've been encouraged,
Okay, okay. All right.
but it's bad. Both of them are African American.
And he's also one of African American female too. I think she did follow up and file a complaint. That she left and tried to come back within the 3 years. And she had no bad record, anything, her cases were good, when she left, and they pretty much blocked her. It seemed like,
So when
but others come back
others come back,
with no problem.
No problem.
We can get somebody to talk about the rehire process and what the rules are around it. But I just want to warn everyone that we can't talk about individual cases in this meeting.
Absolutely, that's confidential.
Right, yeah, so I just want to make sure everybody, we have some new members, make sure everybody understands we can't deal with individual cases because that deals with confidential information, review of personnel files, that kind of stuff. So, but we can talk about general policies
Like a process.
and process.
Mr. Chair, like a process.
okay. So, and that, let's, I'm writing this down. Let's, we were looking at 2022. Let's look at 2023, but what, okay, yeah.
Okay, so,
But I want to try to, before you do that, I'm trying to acknowledge what he was saying,
Oh,
but
okay.
what I want to do is make a note that we would like, a person, either, Ethan Dye, the director, or someone to come and talk with us about what that process is for the rehires.
talking about the general county process or just the department process?
You're talking specifically for human assistance, am I correct?
If it relates to the accounting process, that's fine too, but I think we've established the fact that when you're dealing with the departments, kind of look at some of the questionable items, so in this case, it would be the department.
Does the department and the county have one and the same process, or do they have to?
Same process.
Yeah.
The rehire process is not as formal, but I'm saying that there is a process for it.
And that might be, it's where the problem lies, is it's not as formal. And so
You
maybe,
get that-
I mean, what he's, given what Patrick was mentioning.
And that's just even a fund office might be better to explain the different options.
Mr. Chair, I would like to partner to speak on. Okay, Mr. I mean, if somebody else has another proposal, I would like to partner.
Well, yeah, that's what you said, you wanted.
I just heard somebody keep saying, count. But we've established that we have issues on this gathering for it, and that the parties will come and speak on that.
Right.
So if somebody else has something else, that's fine.
Well, no, and what I heard though also is that the policy isn't as established or as formal, and so that there needs to be where the issue is. Well, let me ask, this question, we are talking about the department, but when we ask the department to clarify the procedure, they would be following, they would be following the county, right? So in that case, it would be good to bring in the department, because then we would hear about what the county process is and see, well, do they vary from the county process? To see what that variation is. I think that would, because I wanted to make sure that we were also hearing what the county's process was, but specific to what Patrick was mentioning, how does that department go about that process? Okay, so the request would be, please, if we'd add EEO office, the rehiring process for the Department of Human Assistance and its alignment with the county process. Okay, all right. You're.
So, my question is, when you look under each category, age, it has ongoing, is that a Q, and then ongoing KM? What, is there a legend for that? What?
Yes.
What does letters mean?
So each of the letters indicates a case. So a case can have multiple allegations. So for instance, there's R.
So what is it? Yeah, what is our?
R, for instance, is a case, and their, one of their allegations had to do with disability, medical condition, and race, color, national origin, ancestry, and retaliation.
So what does E mean? So is there a legend anywhere? So we
So
can see what E means?
Each of those letters represents a case, one case, but one case can have multiple allegations.
We don't need to see allegations, but what does it E stand
It's
for?
in what?
It's person.
A person. Oh.
Without using names.
I was gonna say, it can be in disabilities, it can also be pregnancies, it can also be retaliation. It's just the third person, the fourth person, but they use some letters. You get it?
So E is,
A
so,
person.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So a letter is for each person, okay. Well, it's not real clear here, we want to see all these.
Yeah, so you can be here, you can be here, you can that one.
Yeah, I got it, right.
Yeah. It's just trying to go, because sometimes you may have somebody who says, I was treated differently because of my race and sex. In which case they'd be counted under race and counted under sex, even though it's the same complaint. So that's why we have the letters to try to indicate this is the same person.
Oh, it's
They
the
just
same
have multiple
person.
dates.
Okay, so Q is the same person, T is, okay. I
Yeah,
got it.
Yeah, just the person.
Any other questions? All right, we'll do 2023 stats, please.
Okay, looking at 2023 Department of Human Assistance Workforce Statistics Report and beginning on table 1. For 2018, Human Assistance had a total of 1,977 employees. Of those, 1,268 or 64.1% were minority, and 1,404 or 71% were female. In 2023, there were a total of 1,771 employees. Of those, 1,226 or 69.2% were minority, and 1,256 or 70.9% were female. In moving on to table 2, for the job category comparison, the top 3 categories. First was professionals with 1,277 employees. Of those, 926 or 72.5% were female, and 890 or 69.7% were minority. Next highest area was office clerical workers with 350 employees. Of those, 249 or 71.1% were female, and 257 or 73.4% were minority. And last was paraprofessionals with 75 total employees. Of those, 45 or 60% were female, and 50 or 66.7% were minority. Moving on to table 3.1, for new hires and rehires, there were a total of 201 new hires. Of those, 163 or 81.1% were minority, and 133 or 66.2% were female. There were a total of 14 rehires. Of those, 9 or 64.3% were minority, and 12 or 85.7% were female. And looking at table 3.2, for terminations, there were a total of 186. Of those, 129 or 69.4% were minority, and 128 or 68.8% were female. The highest reasons given were employee initiated, no reason given, with 89 or 47.8%. And then next, retired or disability retirement with 61 or 32.8%. And moving on to table 3.4, for promotions and demotions, there were a total of 115 promotions. Of those, 96 or 83.5% were minority, and 81 or 70.4% were female. There were 3 demotions total. 2 were minority or 66.7%, and then also 2 were female, 66.7%. And then looking at table 4, for discrimination harassment complaints, there were a total of 18 complaints.
One person could have multiple complaints.
The multiple allegations. Remember when I was explaining how the same person could like complain that they
Oh,
were
right,
treated
different
differently based on race and sex, so they become as.
So where's the 18 that he was talking about?
Yeah.
Where's that
It's
number?
18.
Richard
said 18.
Yeah, that's at the
18
bottom.
total complaints. That would be A through possibly R,
There
or
were 18 people,
18.
18 complaints. Yeah.
18 complaints, but 23 allegations.
Yes,
So that means that one person complained to have multiple allegations. No, I understand, I'm just explaining it.
So Richard, so the 18 are complaint tenants or
Complaints.
complaints.
The same say if one person filed a complaint at the beginning of the year and filed a complaint at the end of the year, that would be counted as 2 complaints. But within each of those, they could have multiple allegations or
Where's
multiple bases.
Right. So
Yeah.
what's the,
Where's the 18 number?
at the bottom?
At the very bottom.
The bottom.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, just-
Okay.
So for me is complaints and allegations feel like the same thing. So I understand what the differences are, but it almost feels like the same thing. So is there a potential way to separated out in the future. The allegation and a complaint. Maybe complaint is the umbrella and the allegations are the details. Is that how it's doing?
Although it says allegations, it's really not allegations. It's the basis chosen.
The reasons.
Huh?
The reasons for the complaints.
Yeah, the basis meaning age or marital status or race or religion. So it's hard, and that's what we're trying to, so if anybody has any ideas on how to better show this, let us know. But we've struggled with how showing and being transparent that the complaint say was about disability and race, but not looking like it's actually two complaints. Because if you only put an X for each thing that was checked, it's just, yeah, we haven't figured out an easy way to get it across. So it's always takes a little bit of explanation until you get used to it.
So on the complaint form,
Mhm.
what are the allegations? What's the heading for the allegations? Like, I don't have it in front of me, but can you use that as like, because there are boxes. but
Yeah,
Whatever the.
I believe they say basis. It's a protected characteristic basis. Yeah. I don't know, maybe we do need to return some of that.
Or just slash basis.
Yeah,
Because allegations feel like
yeah,
they are.
yeah, I see what you're saying.
Sorry, question.
Mhm.
So if Anne is in two categories, is that one case?
Yes,
So maybe we can change 18 complaints to 18 cases. I'm saying just an option. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just throwing out.
I mean, it's possible we change, yeah, complaints or to cases. And Patrick's point about allegations, that's it's a little bit it's kind of a little bit of a misnomer as well.
I think because we classify this left column as complaint types, it only makes sense for us to total out the number of complaints across the board. So
Yeah,
it would probably make more sense for the bottom to say total complaints and then the right side to say total complaints as well, so that it's consistent across this chart. Because we're listing the different types of complaints. And then when we're totaling it, we're calling it allegations.
Yeah.
yeah.
Any more questions on? Yes, sir.
So, person working for the department, I brought this up to our committee in the past, oral complaints, allegations. Basis aren't documented. So department, I'm not sure, thousands of people, couple of thousands. There's hundreds of oral allegations, oral complaints that never get to these documents. And I would like the department to come in and explain what they do with those. Like hundreds, literally hundreds.
If it gets to the point of being investigated, like, because oral complaints come in and turn into investigations, that happens sometimes, they're documented, those are included in these numbers. If it's an oral complaint, like somebody just makes an offhand comment about, I don't like this, but it's not formally made to the right people to trigger an investigation, then they wouldn't be included in this. I'm not sure if that's what you're asking about.
I'm not speaking of this. I'm speaking of legitimate complaints where supervision would discourage employees from putting it in documents like this because it would prevent them from voting. I've heard hundreds or dozens of those. Then I've heard dozens of complaints of, I like you and I like you. Let's just talk it out. Where are those complaints going? Just they got on the vine because it's not in writing. And I brought this up over previous years, that oral complaints are not documented in the manner that they should be. Because again, this is why we lead to DEI issues. This is why we lead to lack of promotions. This is why we lead to This is as a public health crisis because these things aren't documented properly to handle it. So I would like the department to come and explain what their process when their managers, supervisors get those complaints. Because a lot of times our labor unions, we get those. We encourage people to put in writing, but a lot of people are very intimidated because once it triggers, in these portals, there's all kinds of things that go on behind the scene. I would like our department, DHA, to come and explain what are their reasons for that. Not to bring any names up, but I know it exists.
So I'm noting here, so we have two things that we want human assistance to talk about. One, was noted earlier, the process for rehiring. And then this other one is the process for documenting oral complaints. Explain that process. How they handle that. So, people,
Feel like HSA.
I'm sorry, what's that?
You're gonna invite Ethan, one of the deputies, so.
Yeah, who should we ask?
Start with.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's start there. Yeah, we can figure out who so we're gonna ask Ethan. I asked that question earlier. We need to clarify it. That's good. Thank you.
I think it'll be a good idea. I'd like to ask him. I was pleasantly surprised on the other statistics, how many minorities they are hiring for a large department of that size. I thought it would be less. I'd like to hear what he's doing.
Okay,
Maybe it's something I can actually do in my department.
so that would be the third note. So, yes.
Yeah.
Well, let me document what her.
Oh.
Okay, before we go into that. So the third one was to talk about their the recruitment process and how they achieve seems to be want to call it high marks, but maybe that's not good. How about something I'll agree with that? What is that?
They have a high percentage.
Higher percentage of diversity.
Right, in other departments, so for that size, I am curious to know. They're doing something right, I think.
Diversity.
Not necessarily.
Well,
Okay, but you're saying minority, you're including other races too. And I'll just say it this way, the last 3 rounds of hiring in my department has been nothing but Latinos and Asian. No person of color, of African American, I should say. None. We just got one because at that time, the acting PM said, this time when you're hiring, put some diversity in there. And we just got one.
Yes, sir.
You know, I would be curious as to someone that's authorized to discuss these matters with the environment. These questions aren't new to this department, but I would like to know in regards to nepotism, how many managers that start a program and above have related people that have come to our department, promoted, moved around, promoted. We have a very good machine when it comes to that. And to answer a couple of questions in regards to some of the diversity, the appearance of diversity. Some of these promotions could be entry level, but as far as upper management, there's not a lot of diversity. There's tokenism, big time. People are related. Hispanic people, Asians, they're all related, and they move them around so it won't appear that, for instance, someone at CPS or get their family member or friend promoted to the other department. It's just, but the entry level to the nepotism is horrendous. So when we start looking at what appears to look good, DHA has a well-oiled machine where it's none of them pass a polygraph when it comes to it. So that's That's my statement.
Okay, I wanted to pose a question to Corey and Mindy and Richard. So how is, I know this came up from in our last meeting, last month's meeting in general. How is potentials for nepotism, how is that addressed? Because we talked about last time, questions that come up, hey, are you related to someone else in this department, et cetera, et cetera. How is that addressed? And how could we, I'm trying to think of, how do we ask that question? Maybe we just point blank ask that question. But I'm thinking this is probably a little bit more of a delicate question where it's more of a, I don't know how you look into that, but that'd be something interesting to review. So it is on the application?
I know, but we have to, we're, if someone in the department is working for us already and we're trying to get on, when we folks are trying to get hired, they have to hold the information of who they're related to and how.
And does that factor in, once that's noted in the hiring, whether that person is included or not, or do they need to be 2 or 3 levels of supervision removed? How does that work? In my past experience,
There isn't a county, currently there isn't, I mean, currently there isn't a clear countywide policy that with absolutes like that. It is discouraged to be in a direct reporting relationship with somebody that you're related to, but there isn't clear guidelines like that, that there has to be 4 degrees of supervision removal or something like that. There also isn't the absolute prohibition of having people that you're related to in the same department or in the county.
so because
But Patrice is right, it is a question that's on the application.
Now it's.
Yeah.
So.
but
I don't know.
like in your department, if they check it off, it wasn't
But I do know that if you are related to someone and they are your supervisor, you can't work under someone that you're related to. And they try to separate, the separation work all over. So they try to separate the family members. So we have husbands and wives that work with us, but they're in different divisions. So we have the husband that's in the juvenile field, we have the wife in the adult field or in the courts. No one is working together. Or they're in the juvenile hall, they're in different units.
And a lot of that is somewhat department specific. Some of the bigger departments like probation or sheriff's department are ones that they're large departments that tend to have people with family members, with spouses that are within the department. THA is another one of those huge departments. Just by the numbers, it's going to tend to have some people that are related, but some of the different departments deal with it operationally a little bit different.
So Patrick, I'm gonna come, I see for 1 second. So my question with that is, so when an allegation like that comes, have there been complaints from staff persons to say that they're experiencing nepotism, and then how does EEO office address that?
It's not typically handled through EEO because it's not being related to somebody isn't a protected characteristic. Unless it's something like so-and-so is married to so-and-so, or so giving them preferential treatment because, I mean.
Could they go by department then? Because I remember having this discussion with the deputy director at that current time in 2014 with Gladys Deloney. And we were going back and forth in the email about the nepotism that's going on, stuff, and people being promoted because they were related to someone. And she was trying to correct it when she was here. She did her part, I'll say, in correcting it when she was here. So I don't know.
Yeah, this is, I mean, and Mindy can chime in too, but this is one of those that we've had issues come up that I've seen them dealt with through all kinds of different patterns. Sometimes people are disciplined, sometimes people are split up, sometimes it's decided that the people aren't really in reporting relationships, so it's not a big deal that they're related to somebody in the same department. I mean, so it's really kind of case specific.
But before, Mandy, before you respond, all I want to do is, just talk about this little bit of a point of order. I'm going to but I would prefer us, because we all see different folks' hands raised. I want to recognize someone's hand that's raised first. Not because I asked, it was still, my questions that were on deck right now. But, Patrick hand was raised, a couple of meetings ago, we had some issues, so, not that there's any problems. But I want to make sure if a person's hand's raised, I want to recognize that person first. But before I recognize you, Patrick, she said maybe you had some thoughts on that.
And pretty similar to Corey, it's really very much case specific. You do have some language in the charter about specifically certain positions in the county that cannot have nepotism that deals with it. But beyond that, we're developing the policy model, so we carry out.
There's a policy that will become,
Being developed, yeah.
being developed.
But rarely do they come to the EEO office. This is an operational hiring issue that comes up when they're interviewing. If it comes to our attention, then it's dealt with, really with the management of the department.
Okay, Patrick, thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just going back to this department, some of the things that I can personally speak on. If there's a relation that the only formal policy that I've been told for 20+ years, if I'm related to men, I can supervise them. But men can be in our building, you can supervise them. So those, and that's throughout the So one of the problems that comes to light is that me and Mindy are related. Yeah, me and you are friends. So Mindy doesn't have to worry about dealing with police probation. Mindy doesn't have to worry about her time because me and you are friends. So I'm not going to do to my friends' relationship. So these are problematic because as you go up to at the top of the chain of command, most people are related to a whole lot of people on the front line. And two people can keep secret, so everybody knows. So, this first person is untouchable as far as work requirements, time, they get preferential treatment for vacation requests. All these things come about over the years, and the county just confirmed that there's no formal process. And this actually is problematic when you have, say, tokenism, where you might have a dedicated Hispanic who's all his family knew for years, have been promoted, like undefeated. Like every time they went for a promotion, it's bam, 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 bam. So those positions are reserved for family members, church members, relationships. So I would like to know a raw number, nothing detailed. How many managers, PMs and above, have relations, whether it's blood, social, in our department? That's what I'm like. So raw numbers, not detailed, because those are problematic.
Let me see if anyone else, is that, is that, how, we can
That's
ask
a question that we can ask. They can bring those numbers in. So I'm not asking for details, I'm asking for the raw numbers, so we can look at it globally. Because when Ms. Jackson comes in, these are some of the hot issues.
Okay. Let's do this. We'll pose the question. So I have three, this is the fourth item. We'll pose the question and then they can figure out whether they answer that or not, but it will be on record that when they come, you knowing that concern, you can say, well, we asked for this, but here's the concern, it will also be on record, and then we can, move forward from there. Somehow the answers are satisfactory. I don't know how to fully address that because it's a complex deal, but I think we should ask the question.
Right, because the data is there. Some a few members confirmed that the question is asked.
Okay, so what I have is
4 things written out. Before we, before I move on to that, court.
Just to clarify, the question is asked on an application. That data is not tracked in our personnel database, so it isn't an easy demographic to pull.
True. But my point was whether it's able to be answered or not. I think if there's even anecdotal evidence, observation evidence that says, hey, this is an issue, then at least it will be on record that the question was asked. And they can say, well, we don't know anything about it. Well, then, there may be other, steps that we can think about to take a look at. That's it's complex, but I don't think it should not be answered. But before I go through any other questions, are there or notes? Is there anyone else that has a data or request question for the HSA?
Human assistance, you mean?
I'm sorry, DHA. That HSA is another one. Where did I get that from? I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. That's all right. There's one. I'm sorry. But I got confused, sorry, close. Department DHA, sorry, my apologies. Any other ones here?
And also, I would like to know classifications by demographics and salaries. And that information can easily. I've had it before, for at least 5 years, 2012 to 17. So again, I think one of our committee members brought up salaries. So we can start taking a look at entry level, because our department, the appearances that they are diverse, but when it comes to upper management and retention, as you saw, one stat of terminations, 8 out of 10 are minorities, hires, it's all over the place. Those things are actually coming together at some point. These are the things when Ms. Jackson comes, the data will be available for her to look at. If she doesn't,
Okay. Richard, were you pulling up any stats to address any of this? I know we had your stuff on.
I just brought up the dashboard that,
We're requesting, yeah. Right, but not yet. Okay, so Corey, question for you. For classification and salaries, is that data that you can pull?
We could pull for each class the breakdown by race and show you the salary, what the salary band is for each class. Because everybody within the same class is within that band.
And so we can do that. I mean, I think that was something that we were maybe asking for. So Richard, might be interesting for future 2000 next year's, that maybe that category be added, but not to add too much more of a burden. We can pull this out for DHA, correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, all right. It may be something that we may want to pull for, just like I'll put in my notes, like the future note, because I think that is coming up, what the breakdown of the salaries were, if I recall from some past meetings, we're trying to see how that works. So that may be some kind of statistic that we could pull for in general for the future for when we're looking at 2023, 2024 statistics, to have a classification and salary breakdown by race or ethnicity. We can have that in the future, but this is for DHA. So here are 5 items that I have written down. Hope I captured them. For inquiries for Ethan Dye, the director of DHA. So one is the rehiring process and what that is. Number 2 is the process for handling oral complaints and what that is. Number 3 had to do with recruiting and the percentage of diversity, higher levels of percentage of diversities compared to others. How are they achieving that? Number 4 has, how many, program managers, the raw numbers of how many program managers and above are related, if that's possible, may not be able to be answered. And then number 5 is classifications and salary breakdown, per race and or ethnicity. Or those would be when we send the request for DHA. Did I capture everyone's thoughts here that? Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, all right, if nothing else further, we can go ahead and take a look at the dashboard for the DHA.
Scary.
Yes.
Also, just looking, we go through these stats so fast, so. Get back into it. So a lot of the, determinations, no reason given, that number is pretty solid. So maybe a question in regards to offering not only exit interviews, but making that a suggestion. Are they calculate or telling why people are leaving? Because I know our department has a decent solid rate of people that we cannot give them reason.
Our exit interviews,
They're offered, so from what I hear, but.
Yeah, we do. We encourage every person who's.
so if they choose not to, then they,
A lot of employees or former employees, they just write like a 2 sentence. My last day will be blah, blah, blah. Please send them my check this way. Things there.
so,
The department offers the exit interview.
No, actually DPS does.
UPS does.
okay,
But on the front line, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
What people hear, why people leave, they're not gonna get promoted if they only promote their friends, hostile work environment, lack of training, or proper training. A couple of years ago, there was city values, I think it was.
Yeah.
And there were over 6,000, and I'll send it to you in the office, the complaints that every location in EJ has a location, so, and it was just over and over and over, hiring their friends and family, pick the same people for committees. Those committees are used for promotional opportunities that everybody are out there. I mean, it's like really, really a lot of issues. So the exit interview, people are, I want to just go on because I don't want that negativity to go to my next job, but they do talk.
I know, but what I guess what I'm asking is that something that we can ask if they're given the option if they choose not to. I mean, cannot their particular union inquire about that? I'm just saying is we have 5 things that we're asking. Is this 6th item that you're asking something that we can ask because it's already being asked and people aren't responding to it and they're choosing not to respond to it for, various reasons. All of that, they're real complaints.
Right.
So, I mean, I think my recommendation would be as a union that if you are aware of those complaints, then to be when, Ethan Dye comes or some other representative to be able to say, well, here's a list of complaints that we've received as the union from our exit information, or what we're aware of, are you aware of this? And if so, how are you addressing it? I think that would probably be, well, not probably, not my recommendation of approach, because I don't know any other way that we could, get that. You get what I'm saying? Do you have complaints from the union that you can present? You don't have to bring the names. But
I'll bring the complaints that survey, or we have surveys, but I'll bring the complaints from the membership.
Yeah,
It's about 6,000. And
Yeah.
not all of them were complaints, but a great deal of things that.
I mean, but even names could be redacted. or
Right,
something.
and these are no names. These are just different
Right.
locations, so it wasn't like, we got together in this building and said it was like common themes throughout the department.
Okay.
And then, of course, it was supposed to be confidential, but the leadership who were overseeing this information was going back and saying, she said this, he said that. And again, they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and they call it city values. But the only thing that really came out of it was those people who participated in it. They got it.
Well,
Every last one of them got promoted to the next level.
I have
So
5 items that I think we can request that were noted. And the 6th one, I think you may need to bring in surveys and you can ask them to back with we can figure out.
they're aware of the service. So when you suggested does the union do it, this is the employer's responsibility,
Okay.
in my opinion, to find out why if
Whose responsibility?
the employee
The employers.
responsibility to find out why they're losing staff.
Okay, so I think then when Stephanie, I remember her last name, Jackson, when she comes, maybe that can be addressed to her. I'm thinking, I don't know, but I want to, I'm gonna have to leave. I have to leave now. I'm gonna turn the chair over to Annette. But I think those are good points noted, so we have all we do with it. So, do we have any more discussion on this particular on DHA? Not, we can move to the next set of stats and then I can turn it into rules. Okay, all right. Thank you all. Good discussion.
Am I moving on to the next?
Yeah.
Public defender.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Transition.
So I'm looking at the Public Defender's 2022 Workforce Statistics Report and beginning with Table 1. In 2017, Public Defender had a total of 144 employees. Of those 47 or 32.6% were minority and 70 or 48.6% were female. In 2022, there were 149 total employees. Of those, 62 or 41.6% were minority and 71 or 51.7% were female. And looking at Table 2 for job category comparison, the top 3 areas, the first was professionals with 114 employees. Of those, 55 or 48.2% were female and 43 or 37.7% were minority. Next highest was protective services with total of 15. Of those, 7 or 46.7% were female and 6 or 40% were minority. And last, 13 total office clerical workers. Of those, 10 or 76.9% were female and 8 or 61.5% were minority. And moving on to Table 3.1, for new hires and rehires, there were a total of 19 new hires. Of those, 10 or 52.6% were minority and 9 or 47.4% were female. There was 1 female new rehire for that period. And moving on to Table 3.2 for terminations, there were a total of 25 terminations. Of those, 9 or 36% were minority and 13 or 52% were female. And the highest number for reasons terminated is either employee initiated or no reason given. And next was retired or disability retirement. Moving on to Table 3.4 for promotions and demotions. There were a total of 11 promotions, Of those, 8 or 72.7% were a minority, and 7 or 63.6% were female. There were a total of 3 demotions. Of those, 2 were female with 66.7%. And last, looking at table 4 for discrimination harassment complaints, there were a total of 2 complaints. Or, we can look at their, the dashboard, but, back in 2022, it's 149. And looking at their current numbers. $192.
This is current 192.
Yes, as of July
They've
15th.
gone up in the last 2 years.
Does the dashboard track openings? Like,
Let's see.
Unfilled position.
Vacancies.
They're next to that, yeah, right next to
Oh,
that.
sorry.
say no.
Any questions for the public defenders? Statistics? No questions? We can move on to the next. We have statistics for the next one, right?
Yes.
Gonna get closer to my friends.
So we have sanitation district agency, both 2022 and 2023, starting with 2022. And looking at table 1. In 2017, sanitation district had 706 employees. Of those, 253 were minority, or 35.8%, and 161 or 22.8% were female. In 2022, there were 681 total employees. Of those, 264 or 38.8% were minority, and 156 or 22.9% were female. And moving on to table 2 for the job category comparisons, the top 3 areas. The first, skilled craft workers with 307 total employees. Of those, 7 or 2.3% were female, and 101 or 32.9% were minority. Next highest was professionals with 186 total employees. Of those, 81 or 43.5% were female, and 89 or 47.8% were minority. And last, technicians with 85 total employees. Of those, 24 or 28.2% were female, and 32 or 37.6% were minority. And moving on to table 3.1, for new hires and rehires, there were a total of 33 new hires. Of those, 15 or 45.5% were minority, and 4 or 12.1% were female. And there were 2 minority female rehires during this period. Moving to table 3.2 for terminations, there were a total of 53 terminations. Of those, 15 or 28.3% were minority, and 11 or 20.8% were female. And the highest reason for terminations was retired or disability retirement. And looking at table 3.4 for promotions and demotions, there were a total of 26 promotions. Of those, 11 or 42.3% were minority and 5 or 19.2% were female. And for demotions, there were a total of 2, 1 minority, 50%, 1 female, 50% also. In moving to table 4 for discrimination harassment complaints, there were a total of 2 complaints. I think there were, oops, sorry. 700 something, yeah. Oh, 681. 681 total employees in 2022.
How many open? I mean, open.
Vacancies.
Oh,
Vacancy.
Oh, let's see. I have to select a couple here. Oh, this one. And this one. So. Looks like 88 or for full-time,
681. 88 vacancies.
88 vacancies.
Yeah, 13.2% is the vacancy rate.
Does that sound high?
Well, let me go to their employment stats for their current numbers. Okay. Two, 3, 4, 5.
Small.
It does.
They're missing, but they're around 700.
Uh,
Well, I guess if you have the vacancies.
oh,
That seems high.
true. So 88 vacancies plus the 578, that's 650-ish.
You can break it down to vacancy aging by job, so let's see what job.
Their vacancies has anything to do, this is the department that's separated from the county, right?
They will be.
They will be.
Yeah.
So I wonder
Yeah,
if
the
that
15th of
has
December.
something to do with maybe their vacancy rate, because people are trying to stay with the county.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Because it does seem high.
I think if we broke it down by job class, it's what that is.
This one.
Might be just difficult to recruit classes. It's like assistant, associate civil engineer.
Engineering.
37 positions for assistant.
That looks like a lot of engineering. Super.
Anymore.
Yes.
So high number of vacancies and low number of complaints.
But you're looking at the stats for 2020, which is no.
Oh, 2021.
no
Okay. That's a good point.
And they have a good section on field.
Yeah.
Field numbers.
Oh,
Engineers are probably working from home. Yeah, the others they have to still come in.
So these numbers are 2023.
With
The
the
same
2022 data.
Yeah.
Do
Okay,
you want to move on to this one?
good question.
So, going back to the gender distribution, I think I saw 17%. Okay, that might be on
Here?
On the table,
the table.
is that what the one you were asking about?
I think
Okay,
on the homepage,
What, I'm sorry.
on the
This one.
homepage, they were 17.6%.
So,
Female.
yeah, go to.
17.6% female, and it looks like numbers are really small. Again, can you?
82.4%.
2.4.
Oh, 2.4.
Sitting right at the front, and it's still very small.
So that would be one of my questions. I don't know who's,
Sanitation.
yeah, I don't know who was on this team several years ago. I know Corey, we were at 708th Street and tried to brainstorm with some of the like recruitment efforts to bring in women. And some ideas were bounced around. And I remember I was asked, well, aren't you against nepotism? And I think I brought it up that these are ideas. So I don't know if this group should be brainstorming or we need to bring that department in and find out what type of efforts are they making to open up. Like some of the classifications aren't just what stereotypical people might just see that this department. Sanitation. Because there's some engineering positions, right? Okay.
Quite a few engineering positions available, vacancies
So we need to maybe ask what are the recruitment efforts and
for females.
for females, engineers, minority engineers. Look at the excuse me, okay. See that rate, 315, white, Hispanic, almost 3 times it's any other race. So we probably need to ask them what are some of the recruitment efforts, especially with the open.
Any other questions related to the statistics of this department? No, we can go to the next year.
Yes. Can I ask a clarifying question? So are you wanting from like employment services who they're advertising with? And I asked that question because, for instance, one of the other departments out, general services, I requested those stats and sent, or not stats, advertising areas. Yes, yeah. So do you want something like that as well?
This will help, but I want the department to come. I want somebody that represents the department. So we can ask those questions, we can hear from the department. I appreciate this because this is kind of, in addition to what the department to sign off on these. I think they do go to DPS for help, but what are they doing? What do they like those numbers? Like, are they okay with these numbers? These are probably historically the same numbers over the years. So are they comfortable with these numbers? Same questions about nepotism, all those things need to be asked because it seems like, we didn't get into the weeds when it came down to where those positions are. But that department has some storied histories when it comes to my work, as for my understanding.
I want to find out, or ask the question of the department about the recruitment efforts for females and minority groups, especially for the engineer position.
Well, that's an example. Yeah.
Example, okay.
Yeah. That,
All positions are gendered.
and that department had 3 complaints for it. So
Two, I
two
believe,
or 3.
2 cases of the allegations.
Right. See, these numbers are so low. These numbers are so low that this should go nationwide, and I've said this dozens of times, that these stats should go nationwide to say that Sacramento is a model county. Because I find it hard to believe that it's just 2 cases of complaints. But I just find it hard to believe, just
Could be related, as she mentioned earlier, was during COVID.
I would say COVID generated way more complaints than not,
Oh,
even from home. I would
So
say,
complaint numbers went down for
Yeah.
a little while. Our,
They went up.
and then they probably skyrocketed.
yeah, after everybody came
They
back,
probably skyrocketed.
but they went down. when
During
COVID-
COVID, yeah, nobody was in office.
But as a result of COVID, I mean, the problems just. So they were growing up, they were at home writing it down. But I've just seen the numbers over the years and it's just too many people. People are literally having these issues on a regular basis, but are not coming forward. And then so our departments and the county, eventually something has to give. And I always question why DEI? If all this, most of these stats are really clean, why DEI? Why? Can't be just George Floyd. Can't just be one snapshot.
Is there any other questions for this department?
Do we look at the 23?
No, not yet. We have them.
Thank you, Madam.
This is the 2022 statistics now?
This is the 23 now.
This one's 23. But,
2023.
move on. Oh. So looking at the sanitation district agencies 2023 workforce statistics report, in looking at table 1, in 2018, the total number of employees was 698. Of those, 249 or 35.7% were minority, and 161 or 23.1% were female. And looking at 2023's data, there were a total of 663 employees. Of those, 274 or 41.3% were minority, and 152 or 22.9% were female. And moving on to table 2, for job category comparisons, the top 3 areas first was skilled craft workers with 300 employees. Of those, 8 or 2.7% were female, and 107 or 35.7% were minority. Next highest area was professionals with 181 total employees. Of those, 80 or 44.2% were female, and 91 or 50.3% were minority. And last was technicians with 82 total employees. Of those, 24 or 29.3% were female, and 33 or 40.2% were minority. And moving on to table 3.1 for new hires and rehires, there were a total of 33 new hires. Of those, 23 or 69.7% were minority, and 13 or 39.4% were female. And for new rehires, there were a total of 5. Of those, 1 was female, none were minority at the time. And moving on to table 3.2 for terminations, total of 54 total terminations. Of those, 20 or 37% were minority, and 14 or 25.9% were female. And the highest reason for termination, employee initiated, no reason given, with 31 or 57.4%. Moving on to table 3.4 for promotions or demotions, there were a total of 65 promotions. Of those, there were 23 or 35.4% minority, and 19 or 29.2% female, and no demotions for this period. And last, in looking at table 4 for discrimination, harassment complaints or cases, there were a total of 3 with 5 allegations.
solid number. Isn't there a possibility when someone files a complaint? Would that complaint, if it was unresolved, does it carry over into this next year, or these are new? Right,
New, yes.
Yeah.
It's complaints that are filed within that year.
within that year. Any questions on the statistic? For sanitation, and this is year 2023.
Yes.
No questions? Yes, Patrick.
Just same question from the previous year. I just noticed the census population for female is 51%. It's 17%.
So same question,
Yeah,
okay.
just the same.
We've got a document, I'm sure we asked that up front.
Are we calling them in or?
I was gonna say, I think if there's no other questions, we can. Call the meeting, yes.
Are we calling this department?
Oh, yeah. Do
Yes.
you want to
Yeah,
request a speaker or just request a written response from them? It's going to this is the normal meeting.
I know, I was just gonna say, yes, they are leaving in December, but I think we can at least ask for something in writing for them, or response.
Written response?
Written response, I think would be sufficient for that one question.
So is that whole department is breaking up or every?
All within districts.
They'll give you the governmental
Separate.
Yeah, special districts.
It's going out on the own. Their benefits, they're paid everybody.
No other questions for that department?
They have firms.
Yeah.
They go.
It is 4:57.
The medical.
We can close the meeting.
Yeah, we convert.
Do I have to request somebody to make a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
She lost the thing with the song. I heard teacher.